A live-in tutor, 8,000 yuan per month, working 4 to 5 hours a day. My friend sent me information about a part-time tutor on WeChat. The profile picture of the other person is a woman in a suit, who looks very capable. When I send in my resume, the person was pleased with me but told me I had to interview in person and sent me an address. I followed the address and found the neighborhood. I was a little dumbfounded when I looked at the single red villa. This family must be rich. The house number is 1606. I opened the door and walked in. There was a big yard with a blue BMW parked. I rang the doorbell, and about 30 seconds later, the door opened. When I first saw her, I was a little surprised. Her curly hair was slightly dyed brown, and she looked a bit like a tall round woman. Except for the wrinkles in the corners of her eyes, she could tell a little about her age. She wore a nightdress, loose, because I grew up playing basketball. My height is 182, slightly lower the head can vaguely see a large white. I nervously and dousy to see a few eyes. It was she who spoke first. You are Fong Hai? Well. Yes. I'm a little nervous. Such a tall man, she said, looking up at me as if surprised. Come in. She opened the door and ushered me in. I scratched my head and nervously went in. She turned to get my slippers, bent over, her back to me, her round hips exposed to my eyes. I took a small breath, trying to clear my mind. After all, I was here on business. She poured me a glass of water and we sat down on the sofa and finally started talking about part-time jobs. I've read your resume. It's great. Tutoring my kids must be enough. She said. Well, I asked before, your baby is the second year, right? Right, you don't call me you, call me Blue Sister on the line. The second year is a very critical year, so I want to take advantage of the summer vacation to find a tutor for her. I understand, junior high school counseling. I still have confidence. I'm not worried about my abilities, but I'll have to check with you on some issues. Blue Sister, you speak. We're a live-in tutor. We're staying at my house, you know. I know. Well, that's good. Second, you have to be prepared for 4 to 5 hours a day, sometimes more than that. No problem, children's learning must be the first goal. And you don't mind if it's my daughter you're teaching, gender-wise? No, boys and girls alike, that's not a problem. She seemed quite satisfied, seeing me a little nervous, smiled and said, You don't need to be nervous, our place is a little too far, but there are enough rooms. I show you to see your room? Well. I'm still kind of in shock. I followed her, her beautiful figure in her nightdress swaying uncomfortably in front of me. Suddenly, the doorbell rang jingling. I didn't know why, but the sound of the doorbell made me shiver. I didn't do anything, but I didn't know. I thought maybe her husband had come back, and if he knew that she had hired a male tutor to teach her daughter, he would probably object. Wait, I'll get the door. She said, and went to the door. I sat on the sofa playing with my mobile phone. The door soon came the voice of speaking. I drank a big mouth of boiling water. The voice at the door became louder and louder. She seemed to have an argument with someone. It was none of my business, but I went to the door to see what was going on. Outside the door stood a man arguing with her. His face suddenly changed when he saw me. Bitch, I said, why don't you let me in the door? The original is in the home to raise gigolo. The man said, vigorously pushed the door. She did not resist, was pushed aside by the man. Wang Donghai, don't talk nonsense. She cried. The man ignored her and walked straight up to me. He was not too short. I was caught by the collar. Good boy, how dare you tempt my wife? The plot was moving so fast that I couldn't get my head around it. How the hell did I fall into the middle of a family drama? The man raised his palm and slapped me hard. I was stunned. Wang Donghai, you do this again, I call the police. When the man heard her say this, he put me down and turned to grab her phone. I just came to my mind, only feel the face of fire, mdi provoke who. I saw the man and her twisted together, grabbed her wrist, to hit her. I hate the most in my life, especially this person just inexplicably hit me in the face. Can silently quipped, acutely I stepped forward, towards the man backside, hard to give a foot. The man stumbled and fell to the door with a cry of surprise. Before he could recover, I went up to make up for it. The man swore words like bitch and struggled to get up. I felt a rush of anger rush through my head, and I couldn't help it. I stepped up and kicked it again. Only feel more kick more cool, do not know how many feet kicked, until Blue Sister hugged my arm, said, forget it, Xiao Fong, forget it. Then I saw the man holding his head and wailing, and the momentum was gone. I lost my temper and realized that I had gone too far. Wang Donghai, we have divorced, you harass me again, next time I really call the police. The man lost momentum, but his mouth is still muttering curse words. Is to face shameless? I was also angry, roar, brother if you talk nonsense, do not believe that I kick you again a few feet? Lanjie held me back, and I felt my arm against her chest the whole time. My anger disappeared and my face turned red. Forget it, Fong. She took out her mobile phone from her nightdress pocket and said to the man, Wang Donghai, this is the last time, I give you 50,000, we are clear, if you come again, I will definitely call the police. At that moment, the security guard at the gate drove in his patrol car and seemed not to be surprised by the scene before him. The woman walked over, spoke to him, and the security guard lifted the man off the ground and drove off, giving me what seemed to be a slightly thoughtful look before he left. This sudden interlude interrupted the rhythm of our conversation. Lanjie helped me into the living room. My face was getting sore and even swollen. She said anxiously, Xiao Fong, what are you doing here? You have nothing to do. The tone was reproachful, but more concerned. I bared my teeth, not knowing what to say, muttering, just don't like it. That man is a psychopath. If he had called the police, you would have gone to jail, and a record would have ruined your future. I said nothing. She took out the ointment, let me sit on the sofa, she found the cream in the coffee table, said to me, you don't move, I'll give you some medicine, later with ice. Well. Good. I mumbled back. She crouched down on my left side, kneeling on the carpet, absorbed in dosing me with the medicine. It was summer and the air conditioning was so low that we were both sweating as we stood in the doorway. I looked at her. There were beads of sweat on her nose, and the heat from her body seemed to transfer to me. You can't do that next time. Her lips parted and she whispered something, but I seemed to have lost track of her voice. When the medicine finally finished, she rose slowly, as if because she had been squatting a little too long, lost her footing and fell toward me. She fell half in my arms, and I can't put it into words. It was like suddenly falling into a soft trap and drowning her whole being. Oh, sorry. She struggled to get up. I didn't know where the courage came from, took her arm and pulled her back into my arms. What do you want to do? She asked me reproachfully. The sweat on her nose seemed to increase and I felt hot all over, like a balloon about to burst. What are you doing? Just as the atmosphere in the room reached its peak, a clear voice came from the door. I suddenly woke up, a cold sweat flew out, Blue Sister is naturally from my arms to stand up. I looked around, a little girl with a mushroom head, carrying a school bag standing there. Blue Sister is not in a hurry, the tone is a little cold, this is your brother, I give you a tutor, this summer by him to teach you. Oh, he said. The girl, 2, seemed indifferent, putting her bag on her back and changing her shoes as she pattered upstairs, seemingly oblivious to what she had just seen. How can you do this? At least you are called a man. Blue Sister shouted at the back of the children. Forget it, Blue Sister, the coming days are long, children puberty is like this. Lanjia didn't seem to care about what had just happened. She smiled and said, I've spoiled the baby. I'm going to get you some ice. No more Blue Sister, that's all. I waved my hand away. This is going to happen again, and I'm not going to be able to hold it, I thought. That's all right. Why don't you rest for a few days and come back when you're better? Blue Sister said again. It doesn't matter, it's a small wound. I replied. The main reason is that I really have to move out of school. If I don't move out, I won't have a place to go. So the first day of the interview ended with me heroically wounded. It was already evening when I got back to school. I opened my mobile phone, and Blue Sister transferred 1,000 yuan to me. The postscript was, "Thank you for today." I thought about it and took it. After all, I am really poor. And it's not exactly a no-win situation. The next morning, I was packing things in the dormitory. Suddenly, Blue Sister gave me a phone call. What's the matter, sister? I'm downstairs. I borrowed a car for you because you were moving things. I hurried out and looked down from the window of the corridor. There was a yellow SUV parked under the dormitory building, which looked very cool. Although I didn't know much about the car, cross-country is a dream in every man's heart. Yeah, I borrowed it specially from my girlfriends. It should be enough to help you move. Boy, this is not enough. This is totally overqualified. Okay. I was speechless for a moment. Of course, this is enough to fill my dormitory. I'll be right down. Nothing, you take your time, I haven't been to the university for a long time, just come to your dormitory. What number do you live in? 330. I said. I ran back to the dormitory, quickly put clothes into the box. About 5 minutes later, I heard a knock on the door. The door was not closed. Lan Jia came in, smiled and said, "Can I help you, Xiao Fong?" She is dressed casually today, a simple white t-shirt with a small flower embroidered on the chest and a long skirt at the bottom. No, I can do it myself. It's all dirty. Seems to see my uncomfortable. Blue Sister did not refuse, just lightly said, "Okay," then I casually look. As soon as she walked in, I was a little nervous. Fortunately, I cleaned up in advance, otherwise the dormitory was really messy. Is this yours, too? I turned my head and saw her holding a throw pillow, which was given to me by my roommate on my birthday. In order to mock me for being single for many years, she specially chose a female breast shape and let me hold it to sleep. At this time, was Blue Sister in the hand? I was ashamed. This is friends for fun. I was so embarrassed. Or you young people can play. In this awkward atmosphere, I quickly packed up my things and carried them downstairs to the car. Blue Sister suddenly asked me, "Can you drive?" A 2-year-old driver, he just hasn't driven many carriage returns. I replied. Here, just for you to practice. Lanje handed me the keys and got into the passenger seat without my consent. My palms were a little sweaty, and I opened the door gently for fear of ruining the car. I sat in the main driver, knowing it was supposed to be a Land Rover Defender, and asked, "Sister Blue, this cars are not cheap." I don't know, maybe $1 million or so. $1 million, I gasped. What if I get hit later? No, if it does, it's someone else's fault. Just drive. I with uneasy heart to the car lit the fire, gently said, "Blue sister, that I can open. Don't be afraid. Drive boldly. I'm strapped in and insured." Poof! I almost vomited blood. Such a heavy car, a foot down the accelerator, unexpectedly very natural, car control is very good, worthy of the luxury car. I soon got used to the new car and drove the guard out of school. I naturally moved into the Blue Sisters' home, became a full-time tutor. It happened to be a Friday, the last day of school for children, and then the long 2-month summer vacation. Sister Lan did not take us out to have a big dinner, but she cooked a table for us. After talking with her, I learned that the child's name was Wang Xiaohui, and the family usually called her Hui Hui. Hui Hui is quite clever, but her clever energy is not in study. When I asked her how to simplify the square root of 8 on the first day after she graduated from the second year of junior high school, she said 2, which made me almost faint. I can only be patient and teach her how to be trusted and loyal to others. I have some experience in teaching children. After all, I worked as a tutor for 3 years during my 4 years in college. Hui Hui, this child is actually very smart, but the foundation is too poor. And so it went, about the end of July. That evening, I gave a lecture to Hui Hui in the study. Her interest was not very high. "Why do you look absent-minded?" I asked her. "No." The little girl tilted her head and bit her pen, not wanting to talk to me. "You haven't yet. Tell your brother what's going on, isn't it a lovelorn?" I saw her room hung with a lot of idol posters. I also got to know a little about those people, all of them are good-looking, singing lyrics "There is no lack of love." Damn it! What are you talking about, Brother Fong? "I'm just a child," she replied. "You are a child, clearly is the devil, in addition to your mother who can manage you." I said this is true, there is a nurse and in the home, will be regular during the day to clean, cook. This little girl treat that aunt is not particularly respectful, was Blue Sister said several times. "No, this is not you take care of me," she whispered teasing, and I was left speechless. "Ah, Uncle Fong, let me ask you something." As soon as the name Uncle Fong came out, I knew there would be no good. "You ask. Do you like my mother?" she asked me suddenly. "What? Your skull is broken. What are you thinking about?" I couldn't resist tapping her on the head. "No? I see my mother is very good to you, with other men. Not quite the same. You can't say that. I have nothing but respect for your mother. Damn, I saw you two on the couch, cuddling." "It was an accident," I argued. "If you say so, I didn't see the whole thing anyway." "It's all right, Uncle Fong, I can see it. Besides, if you really marry my mother, you will be better than my father, except to beat anything." As she spoke, her mood sank, and I guessed that it was the man who had contacted her recently that would make her think so. "Come on, what are you thinking about at your young age? Adults take care of these things for you. Let's call it a night and go play." When I said this, her eyes lit up. "Really? Really? Go at once." "All right, then I'm going." She quickly ran out of the study, afraid that I would go back on my word. Just as Blue Sister is not here, let this girl have a rest. Besides, what she said, for me, was too far away. I'm not supposed to like Wei-Yin, but for some reason, living here for almost a month, I do occasionally dream about her. On the last weekend of July, Lanja suddenly told me that she didn't need to tutor Hui Hui that day. Hui Hui went to her grandmother's house and would stay there for a few days. Just because of the company's business, Blue Sister is very busy, we have not met several times at home. That night, very rare, Lanjia said, the company business temporarily ended, she would cook, eat a good meal. Of course I was very happy to oblige. Sister Blue is authentic home cooking with a soup. In this villa, I eat the most is also home cooking, like what sweet and sour carp and so on, are a big meal. She took out a bottle of red wine from the wine cabinet, and we drank in the yellow light. Xiao Fong, thank you for tutoring Hui Hui recently. Here's to you. No, Sister Lan, I just did what I had to do. We drank a whole bottle of red wine between glasses. I had barely ever drunk wine before, and I thought I could handle it just fine. After drinking a bottle, Blue Sister seemed to be still in high spirits, very happy, went to get another bottle. Xiao Fong, tonight we will not go home drunk. No one is to leave early. I echoed, no problem, the one who goes is the dog. But this is home, where else can you go? The more I drank, I was already feeling a little dizzy, leaning over the table, spinning around, unable to see things in front of me. Blue Sister is still drinking while teasing me that I can't handle alcohol. I was so drunk that I fell asleep. What woke me up was the faint sobs of Lanjie. Through the hazy eyes, I saw Lanjie lying across from me, crying in a low voice. I seemed a little sober. I walked over and patted her on the shoulder and said, Sister Blue, are you okay? Lanjie's shoulders shrugged and her body shook with sobs. It looked very painful. All I could do was pat her on the shoulder to soothe her. It's all right, Blue Sister, it's over. I said again. She suddenly grabbed my arm and lay on top of me, crying and saying, Tell me, why is life so hard? I thought to myself, you have so much money, but also complain about life is hard. I was hungry last month. But I was teasing in my heart and comforted myself, Blue Sister, what's the matter? Just say it out loud. Blue Sister heard me say so, emotion suddenly broke the dike, just kept crying. It was the first time for me to see such a Blue Sister. Usually, she was always a strong woman in front of me. I didn't know how to comfort a woman at that time, but I just held her quietly and let her cry softly. I don't know how long it took, maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes, Blue Sister's mood calmed down a little. She wrenched herself from my arms, looked up at me, smiled and said, Excuse me, Xiao Fong. I looked at her pale with rain appearance, suddenly very distressed her, nothing Blue Sister. I tried to stand up and pick up the scraps on the table, but as soon as I calmed down, my head began to feel dizzy again. Lanjie on the other side seemed to feel the same way as me, touching her head and looking unable to stand up. I propped up the table, made my way to the kitchen, washed my face in cold water, vomited so much in my stomach that I could not help but spit into the sink. Fortunately, after vomiting, I woke up a lot. Back to the table, Blue Sister has fallen asleep on the table. No way, I must have to move her back to the room. I will Blue Sister on the shoulder, slowly upstairs. Fortunately I have practiced, otherwise really cannot move drunk her. Somehow she seemed to be awake, whispering something over my shoulder that I could not make out. To the door of the room, Blue Sister suddenly made a sound to vomit. I quickly pulled her into the bathroom, just to the toilet. She vomited up. I toweled and wiped her for the better part of an hour before I put her to bed. In order to avoid suspicion, I did not dare to take off her clothes, poured her a glass of water, and planned to leave. Little Fong. Suddenly I heard Blue Sister calling me. I turned around and saw her open her eyes, but they seemed to have no focus, eyes seemed to be confused. What's wrong, Sister Blue? She opened her arms in a hug gesture. Hug. I smiled, feeling like a child, and bent down to give her a hug. Unexpectedly, this hug is a lifetime mark. The next day, I woke up before Lanjie. Thinking about the night before, I only felt a headache. I vaguely remember, Blue Sister hugged me, and then two people do not know who first took the initiative, hugged each other, and then is kissing, undress. I don't think I'm a gentleman, to be honest, but I feel a little guilty about taking advantage of someone's situation. I got up and looked at the mess in the room, speechless, but the point is, I'm still a virgin. I secretly put on good clothes, going to slip out of the room while Blue Sister did not notice, did not expect Blue Sister already woke up. She suddenly called to me softly, Xiao Fong. I did not dare to turn around, but whispered a promise. I thought I heard her sigh. Well, you can pretend it never happened. Ah. Good. I muddled through and hurried out the door. A week later, Hui Hui came back. During this period, Sister Lan and I had a tacit understanding to reduce the time we spent together. While I was tutoring Hui Hui, I was preparing for the postgraduate entrance exam, trying not to think about that night. It seems that there is something wrong between us. One day, Hui Hui suddenly asked me, Hage, I feel that you and my mother are not quite right recently. I thought to myself, what's in your head? What can your mother and I have? And I laughed and scolded her. I don't know, it just doesn't feel right, you wouldn't, with my mom. Boy, I quickly stopped her, don't talk nonsense, you will be killed by your mother sooner or later. She stuck out her tongue and stopped talking. But I was still nervous when she said it. Seeing the summer vacation go by day, my tutoring career is coming to an end. One day at the end of August, when Hui Hui was not at home, I was reviewing my lessons in my room when someone knocked at the door. I opened the door and found Longjie standing outside, smiling and saying, I want to see you. I was nervous, but I let her through the door. I sat at the table. Blue Sister sat on my bed. She first handed a bag to me. No, this is your 2 months of supplementary tuition, count it. I looked at the thick stack of RMB, the heart is still very excited, 2 months in total 16,000, many people estimated that do not know how much money 16,000, I can only tell you that it is very thick. Lots of money. I probably counted, the number is clearly more than 16,000, I said, Sister Blue, this money, like a lot of awe. She smiled and said, as a reward for you, you are so serious about Hui Hui, and the child's progress is obvious to all. I want to refuse, Blue Sister said, don't refuse, you deserve so much money. I had to accept it in silence, and the room fell into an awkward silence. Sister Blue, that. I tried to say something. Xiao Fong, when did you take the postgraduate entrance exam? Blue Sister suddenly interrupted me, asked. The end of December. I replied. At the end of December, she repeated, how about next semester with Hui Hui? Longjie looked at me, her eyes shining. To be honest, this is a very tempting proposition, regardless of the high tuition fees, or whatever. But my first instinct was to say no. I don't know how to face such a Blue Sister, I have not thought about staying, even more egregious things I have thought, but my inner voice of reason tells me that I stay here any longer is not a good ending for everyone. Let me think about it, will you, Sister Blue? I looked at Blue Sister, the light in her eyes seemed to fade down, and then immediately changed temperament. That familiar, cold, strong temperament. Well, think again. Don't force yourself. Longjie said these, and left the room. I sat alone in a chair, thinking for a whole afternoon. When I saw her again, it was the end of the year. It was New Year's Day, and I had just finished my postgraduate entrance examination. Longjie had sent me a WeChat for a long time. WeChat was very simple, come to my home for dinner. The moment I saw WeChat, I almost cried. After moving out of the Blue Sisters' house, I rented a house of 1,000 renminbi a month. After nearly 5 months of hard work, I finally finished the review for the postgraduate entrance exam. Haven't seen me for a long time. Hui Hui and Lan Jia are very happy, or the same food, the same living room. I have a feeling like every other day. When the meal was over, Lan Jia said, Xiao Fong, your room is the same as before. Why don't you leave tomorrow? Hui Hui also said, yes, hi brother, I tell you, I have entered the class this year in the top 15, winter vacation to help me study. I went into my room, and sure enough it was exactly as I had left it. Fate once again gives me a choice. Is it to choose A or B? No, Blue sister, I'm going home to C. I closed the bedroom door and chose B. I have also asked myself for countless times, if I had to choose again, would I still choose B? Maybe choose A is also a good life. Before I left, I hugged Lanjie and Hui Hui gently, as a final farewell. After the results came out, I never went back to that city. I only occasionally saw the photos of Lanjie and Hui Hui in my moments, and I knew that they were doing well. That's good, I said to myself. Just that summer vacation, how can not forget?